all of you to the Planning Commission meeting for the evening of March 14th. So before we begin, we're going to say the Pledge of Allegiance.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So welcome. For those who wish to speak tonight, please remember to address all the comments and questions to the chair. Keep your comments brief and on point. If you agree with the previous comment, simply indicate your agreement and move on. To expedite tonight's meeting, I will ask those who wish to testify or believe they might like to testify to please stand and be sworn in. Okay. Thank you, and you may be seated. So before we get started, let's all make sure that our phones are on silent. Everybody in the room. Got it? Yes, those in the nosebleed section even. Okay. So yes, roll call. Can we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Ferguson,
Here.
Commissioner Nesbitt,
Here.
Commissioner Preston,
Here.
Commissioner Wiley,
Here.
or H. Wiley, Commissioner L. Wiley,
Here.
and Chairman McLean.
Here. Thank you. Okay, the first thing before us is consent agenda. Has everybody had a chance to look at the minutes?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
can we pull case 23-600-01?
You want to separate it out?
Yes.
Okay. There is a motion to separate case 23-600-01 out of the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
We are ready for a vote. Oh,
Does that need to be voted on, or can we just pull it out so we can?
we need to vote on the minutes, right? Approve
Yeah.
the minutes. So let's approve the minutes.
Okay, yeah, right.
Okay.
Okay, Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
We didn't actually
Commissioner-
vote on the moving the,
Yes.
yeah, we got to
Commissioner
do the
Ferguson,
first one first.
Yes.
Commissioner Nesbitt,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Commissioner H. Wiley,
Yes.
Commissioner L. Wiley,
Yes.
and Chairman McLean.
Yes. The minutes have been approved. Okay. Case number 23-600-01, special sign permit for 4354 and 4510 South Noland Road. Staff, will you give us a report?
Okay. The Nolan South Development Company, LLLP, seeks to install oversized monument signage in the north entrance median, the south main shopping center entrance, and in front of the strip center south of 45th Street. The proposed signs will be CID funded improvements, and the applicant believes that the existing pole signage is dated and in need of replacement. The applicant, to be more specific, requests 3 signs, 2 15-foot, 11-inch tall signs, which in your packet were labeled sign A, and a 10-foot sign labeled sign B. The A signs will have 70 square foot faces and be approximately have a 7-foot gap for vehicle visibility between the faces and the base. The B signs will be 77 square feet faces, setting on the masonry bases. And the faces will contain listings of the tenants there in the shopping center. So staff is recommending approval based upon the following 4 criteria. Number 1, accompanying the required sign and building permits, individual landscaping plans will be necessary for the areas within 3 feet around the signs. Number 2, if trees and signage along the frontage of 45th Street and Nolan Road are within the site triangle and obstruct the intersection and/or the stopping and sight distance, adjustments in placement may be necessary. Number 3, the proposed location for the southern sign A appears to be within the right-of-way and sign setback. Its location will need to be adjusted into the parking lot with the sign permit. And number 4, there is currently a water line running along the side of the proposed sign locations, so adjustments in sign location may be necessary to avoid all utilities.
Thank you. Staff, or commissioners, is there any discussion or questions?
Is the applicant here, or are they not? Or,
Yes, sir.
okay, do we need to let him talk or first before I ask questions?
We can. No.
No, he didn't get sworn in, that's why. I didn't know if he wanted to talk about it or not.
I'm happy to talk about it if you have questions.
Well, I just want to make sure that you guys will do all the 4 aspects that the cities wants, the setbacks and all that, and the trees. I mean, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. I wanted it on record that we're on the same page, that you all are going to take care of that.
Okay, let me swear you in real quick. Raise your right hand, which you did. Do you swear to tell the truth before this commission? If so, say I do.
I do,
Thank you.
Commissioner.
Thank you.
My name is Christopher Shank, and I'm the owner's representative of the shopping center, and thank you for hearing me tonight. The signage is phase 1 of a 3-stage process that we're going through to rejuvenate the Nolan South Shopping Center. So under the gracious auspices of the Independent City Council, we had a CID approved. And what we plan to do first is improve the signage, which has not been improved or changed since my father-in-law developed this center in the mid-1970s. And so what we want to do is get the signage consistent with everything that the city wants, located so that we bring that south part of Nolan Road, immediately south of that nice development there by I-70, and sort of make it harmonized or consistent from a signage standpoint, because we want to improve the street appeal, okay? So that's why we're doing it this way, and this is the first stage. And we think that these monument signs, the way we've got them designed, are going to look important and aesthetically pleasing to people as they come down Nolan Road, a vast improvement over those terrible pole signs that we have now.
I agree.
And then the second thing we're going to do once we get the signage done is then we're going to start re-landscaping and improving the parking lot, breaking up some of the sight lines. Then the third phase will be improving the facades. So this is an important first step for us, and we think that by making the signage along where we have it now consistent with what's going on to the north of us, it'll look sort of, there'll be a kind of a, not seamless, but there'll be a certain aesthetic continuity that'll look more vibrant and more modern. So that's what we want to do, and obviously want to do everything absolutely consistent with what you guys want to do in every way, because we don't want any boo-boos, and we don't want you all upset with us. So I've got a construction superintendent for the area, which is our management company, specifically assigned to manage this process. We're going to have boots on the ground from the day the contractors come out. So I'm optimistic that we'll be able to comply with whatever conditions you put on the permit such that we do something that's in our mutual best interest.
Okay, thanks.
Is that all the questions you have?
That's all I have, yeah.
Will you give us your address just for the record, please? We need your address, please.
My physical address is my home or my home
Yeah,
is 5629 Suwannee Road, Fairway, Kansas,
great, thank you.
66205.
Sorry. I thought you said it out loud and I missed it. Any commissioners, any other questions? Nope, thank you.
I had more answers, but that's okay.
Oh, well, you can give any answers you
But
want to.
thank you. I'm glad to sit
You
down.
have the mic. All right. Is there anyone here to speak for this case? Is there anyone here to speak against this case? Hearing none, I'm going to close the public portion of this case. Commissioners, any other questions of staff?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move to approve case 23-601-01, special sign permit for 4354 and 4510 South Nolan Road with the four conditions.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second?
Thank you. And we're ready for vote.
Commissioner Ferguson,
Yes.
Commissioner Nesbitt,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Commissioner H. Wiley,
Yes.
Commissioner L. Wiley,
Yes.
and Chairman McLean.
Yes. Case number 23-600-01 has been approved. All right, thank you. Next case is 23-100-01, rezoning of 916 and 1004 West 23rd Street from C2 to R12 and to C3 and 910, 929, 22 West 23rd Street and 1130 South Cottage Street from C2 to C3. That is a mouthful. Will you please give us a report?
This is a case that they're requesting to continue, so
Okay.
to vote to continue it.
All right.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Is there a second?
Second?
You didn't want to repeat that? We're ready for a vote.
Commissioner Ferguson,
Yes.
Commissioner Nesbitt,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Commissioner H. Wiley,
Yes.
Commissioner L. Wiley,
Yes.
and Chairman McLean.
Yes, case number 23-100-01 will be continued till April 25th, 2023. Okay, next case, 23-100-07, rezoning for 617 North Hawker Avenue. Staff, will you give us a report, please?
Okay, this case is a request to the applicants, Phil and Lisa Snedeker, wish to rezone a property from industrial to residential. As you can see from the vicinity map here, it's on Hawker, basically, well, it's closer to College than to Truman, but it's on the stretch of Hawker between, on the east side between College and Truman. And oh. Little technical problems here. Okay. Here's the zoning map. So as you can see, this is where this existing single-family residence is actually currently zoned industrial, and it's along a portion of the street where all the homes actually are industrial to the south, with single-family residential to the north, including the vacant lot to the north, and this rezoning would harmonize it with what's adjacent to the north. The comprehensive plan, of course, calls for this area to be a residential neighborhood like it was designed and it currently exists. And so rezoning it to single-family residential would be rezoning it in accordance with the existing comprehensive plan. So this aerial gives you a little better idea of what's built up and what's not. So you can see the vacant properties to the north and across the street. And then, of course, where some new construction actually has occurred in the past decade up there to the northwest. Why the title of the zoning district changed from M1 to I1 in January 2009, which is how we used to refer to industrial zoning. It's been zoned that way since at least 1965. The lot structure was built as a single-family house and has been used as a residence until it recently lost its legal non-conforming status. In July of 2021, the house was tagged as dangerous structure due to structural issues. As this building has been vacant for more than 6 months, the structure has lost its legal non-conforming status. Staff has been working with the property in order to bring the structure into compliance with city codes. The applicants want to repair the existing structure on the property, which is currently zoned industrial. To restore the structure to single-family residential use, the property must first be rezoned. Otherwise, the structure will likely be torn down. Given the dimensions and location of the property, it's not likely that this site would ever be developed for industrial uses. Lastly, the applicants own that vacant lot adjacent to the north that, as you saw earlier, was zoned R6. Physical characteristics of the property: the 1,222 square foot bungalow sits on a 6,629 square foot lot with a narrow 5 foot wide southern side yard. The neighbor's small ranch to the south, therefore, is quite close. The property does not have a garage or paved driveway. Significant gravel has been added as a drive to the north of the structure and along the graveled area into the rear. Storage units have also been placed at the rear of the property. So both the storage units and the gravel area will have to be removed. This neighborhood has been associated, as far as the characteristics of the neighborhood, as an assortment of houses built in different eras of the 20th century and more recently, as I noted, as well as a number of vacant lots. But generally, this has been the neighborhood that has experienced some significant disinvestment over the past few decades. In the analysis section here, as far as the consistency with the Independence for All strategic plan, an objective of the city's strategic plan is building new housing units or preserving existing units to fill a market need. The comprehensive guiding land use principle that would be most in keeping with the situation would be the one to improve and maintain housing stock in established neighborhoods. Again, this is zoned I1, and of course I1 allows for warehousing, wholesaling, small vehicle repair, small engine repair, office facilities, government facilities, manufacturing type uses. The allowed uses in the R6 district would include, of course, single family homes, and then like home-based daycare, of course, government facilities, churches, schools. The property is not located in any federally identified floodplain, and it's not in any designated stream buffer. As far as historic and architectural sites, there do not appear to be any significant historic or archaeological sites on the property. Excuse me. Public utilities, of course, all public utilities are available on the property. And CIP investments, the city does not have any capital improvements planned near this site at this time. So real quickly, we'll go through the pictures here. So this is looking basically directly at the property, a little bit northeast. So you can see the two, the vacant lot the applicant owns, as well as the property, the house itself. And that's the little ranch that's to the southeast, or that's actually directly south. That's fairly close. Excuse me. This is looking south down Hawker. So down at the bottom of the hill, way down there, would be Truman Road. And then this is looking the other direction, north of Hawker, and you can see some of the newer construction more recently built there on the northwest side there. And this is that large vacant lot that's directly across the street to the west. Okay, now this is the back of their home. You can see, actually, of the home. You can see the addition, and you can also see those two storage units I talked about earlier. And inside of that fenced-in area is a large gravel area that would, of course, have to be removed, as well as the storage units that I just mentioned. And staff recommends approval of this rezoning, and I'm ready to take any questions you may have.
Thank you. Commissioners?
Yeah, I got a question here. That newer property you showed, is that the R12 that's already been rezoned, or is that industrial?
Yeah, I think that's actually on that left side of the street is R12.
Is R12,
Because
okay.
those are duplexes.
Okay, yeah, that's why I was wanting to make sure that was R12
Yeah,
on that side.
the east side north of there is
I'm trying to figure the
R6.
direction out on the map. Yeah, okay, so that's where that's at. My next question is going to be, why are we telling them they have to remove the gravel? Because, I mean, they tried to put a driveway, it looks like to me. We got several houses I know in Independence that are gravel, so I don't understand that aspect there. I mean, it's not written down here, that's why I didn't want to make sure. I didn't know what's,
Well, you have to, I mean, driving surfaces in a residential neighborhood that's not agriculturally zoned and has more than 5 acres requires the driving surfaces to be paved.
okay, but, I mean, we have lots of houses in Independence that are gravel, so, I mean, is there?
Well, they're grandfathered, legal nonconforming.
Okay, okay. So
This is
cuts
new graveled area back there that hadn't been graveled before.
Okay, but, I'm just trying to figure out what the deal is, why we're saying they have to have gravel removed. I mean, that's why, I understand where you're coming from, but if somebody wants to put a load of gravel in the backyard, I don't see why we could say something about it.
Because the code,
But that's in the backyard,
it's a driving surface.
okay, but the next thing is what if they say it's river rock?
We'll repeat
I mean,
that.
I just want to make sure, I mean, I see where problems will come up, but I just want to make sure, because it's not stated on here they have to, or is that in the codes and when they do? the permits?
Yeah, I mean, that's something that codes is in fact in the process of
Okay,
enforcement
I just want to make
process
sure,
right
'cause it
now.
wasn't
So,
on here, that's why I want to make sure it's not something we had to have put on there. So, okay, that's my question.
All right. Any other questions?
Yes. Nothing here indicates that there's been a historical use, industrial use that would be an impediment to residential use. Are we aware of any historical uses?
I mean, historically, it was my understanding is it's been residentially used despite being zoned industrial. There's never been fabrication going on there or anything that would
So this appears,
toxic or anything.
so this appears to be remarkably straightforward, an industrial zoning being moved to residential zoning.
Yeah, like we have talked about before 1980, we used to have that pyramid zoning, so we didn't worry about the fact that we had residential and industrial districts, and we have numerous remnants, of those type of zonings all around the city, and this is another one of those cases that needs to be fixed.
So I know you're recommending approval, but there are no reasons that we should not approve it.
Not
Correct.
that I can think of.
Okay, seems straightforward, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions? Would the applicant like to come up and talk, even though we didn't get sworn in? Okay. Is there anyone here who would like to speak for this case? Is there anyone here who would like to speak against this case? Hearing none, the public portion of this case is closed. Commissioners, any other questions, or I would entertain a motion?
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
in the matter of case 23-100-07, rezoning at 617 North Hawker Avenue, and the request for a zoning change from I-1 industrial to R6 single-family residential, I move for approval.
Is there a second?
I second.
With the stipulations, of course,
I'm giving it to Virginia. She was like a hair.
with the stipulations and recommendations as cited by staff.
Well, there's no
That's not a
condition.
condition.
These aren't conditions.
Those
These
are
are
not
just,
conditions.
they're just statements in the report.
Make sure that.
Yeah,
All right.
we can't condition
Then
the zoning.
the motion is as read.
And there was a second while you were reading, so.
Who was the
We are
second?
ready for a vote. It was
Okay.
Commissioner Ferguson.
Ferguson?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
We're ready.
Ferguson is the
Second.
is second. Okay.
Oh, I thought you were calling roll.
Okay, we are about to take a vote. Do we know where we're at? Okay, we're ready for a vote.
Commissioner Ferguson,
Yes.
Commissioner Nesbitt,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Commissioner H. Wiley,
Yes.
Commissioner L. Wiley,
Yes.
and Chairman McLean.
Yes. Case number 23-100-07, rezoning for 617 North Hawker has been approved. Thank you. Okay, so we're ready for the CIP. We're going to have fire and police talk first, right? So that we're not occupying their time.
Yes, what I'm going to do is go over the CIP, kind of give you a brief report on it, and then I will open that up for questions, and then they will be the first to, I'll ask you, the commission, to make them the first to, if you have any questions.
Okay, I think we're all in agreement. We, not that you all, others don't matter, but we'd kind of like fire and police to be out there doing their thing. The other thing I'm going to suggest is, because it's so lengthy, and there's so, requesting? Yes. He knows. Anyway, that rather than get in the weeds and have so many questions that we're here all night and to respect their time, if there's questions that we think would be better answered longhand, let's write them down and submit them. We can type them and submit them, and then they'll be able to respond accordingly. That way we're not here all night talking about getting in the weeds too deep. Is that okay?
That'll be perfect.
Okay. All right. Floor is yours.
Thank you. Rick Arroyo, the Assistant Community Development Director here at the city. Tonight, we're going to talk about the CIP, Capital Improvements Program, and I know you guys are familiar with this. This is a program that we do annually. It is a 6-year CIP. It covers capital projects. The primary purpose of this is to really look at our community priorities and see what infrastructure. It could be anything. It could be infrastructure. It can be maintenance items. It can be repairs, replacements. Could also be internal things, although we don't have any projects this year like that. So, sometimes it could be software that the city's implementing, things of that nature. Roughly, it's 100,000 or more typically, and the CIP is a document that each department looks at every year, and they use that for their budgeting as we get closer to this year's end of year budget. Excuse me. And so it's going to be a fluid document. It is fluid depending upon those projects. Those projects obviously change. As those needs change, sometimes the funding sources change. In many cases, we go after a lot of grants here at the city, and of course that can change the document as well. So, obviously, just a brief overview. We've got so I do want to make something very clear. We did have a new software that we used this year. We did have some corrections. I did hand out a correction sheet. The things that are in red, and I probably should have used a different color. Those are things that are different from the document that you guys received. It's not something that's being deleted. It's not a number that's being deleted. It's just those are the changes from what you had seen. We're still working on it. We had some issues with it. We identified it. We wanted to verify and make sure that those are the correct numbers. So you do have a corrected sheet. When we actually do present this to the city manager before April, we will have a new document that updates all of that. It doesn't really change the spirit of any of the projects. There are some projects that do have to be deleted out of the document. So you'll see some in there that have $0 amounts for the entire year. Those didn't get deleted, but we will get those out and we will update the document, as I mentioned. So one of the things that you'll notice when you look through this, this is the first year we've done this, is priority-based budgeting. And so you'll look at your typical sheets that you've seen in the CIP. But one of the things that we've done for this year, it's a kind of a financing thing, and it is a methodology that is actually a best practice that many cities across the country are using. We've had scoring in the past, if you guys have ever recognized that, but it's been kind of ambiguous, and it's basically been primarily from each department. What finance really wanted to do was make this a little bit more clear as to what are the purposes of the projects, how do they align with a strategic plan, and what type of attributes, as we'll call them, and I'll kind of go through that, that we can look at to actually make these projects and rate them, if you want to call it that, or score them. And why are they here? Why are we even looking at them? Why are these projects important? And keep in mind there are dozens and dozens of other projects that go on that aren't even on the CIP that are in some way similar to these types of projects. Maybe they don't meet the funding amounts, but all of these projects are important. So that scoring mechanism isn't there to necessarily say a project's good or bad or shouldn't be put in front of another. They're all important. It's just giving more clarity to this commission, council, the public as to why we're putting these projects on the CIP. So one of the things that we look at with this priority-based budgeting is the community priorities and what are the outcomes. So we've adopted a strategic plan, and that strategic plan has certain attributes or certain things that we want to make sure that we're focused on. And those things are customer-focused, financial sustainability, quality, achievement of livability and choices, health and safety throughout quality-built environments, and the economy. And so what we have done with this priority-based budgeting for this year is include those types of things when each department puts in their project. They have questions related to that and how they align with those strategic plans. We also use some key priority budgeting methodology for what are priorities for this priority-based budgeting concept. And we come up with some basic program attributes. Now, these are things that I can tell you right now, we're probably looking at maybe adding some of these things and changing. It's the first year we've done it. Don't really have anything specific that we can say that relates to the way we've scored them this year, but again, it's kind of a work in progress. But again, the whole purpose of that is to show how they align with the strategic plan and how they align with these, what we're calling basic program attributes. And so for example, is a project mandated by DNR, the EPA, or something to that effect. And so a capital project may have a mandate, and therefore there has to be done. Is there cost recovery? You know, do we get grant funding for it? Is it fundable? Do we get funds back in some other portion? And then what volume of the community is actually impacted? So, for example, you may have a water project that nobody sees it because it's part of the treatment plant, but it's going to have an impact on the entire community. It can actually have an impact to other cities. Cities purchase our water, so it's going to have a major impact on the region. On the other hand, you might see a storm sewer project that may only have an impact to one particular neighborhood or maybe one particular street. Both are very important projects, but they do have a difference in terms of how many people in the community they affect. And so with this methodology, there's two different ways of scoring a project. Governance, basically, that would be a project that would be internal, maybe like an IT project or a software project that the city will use internally. That gets scored differently than most of all the projects that you're going to see today. There are no governance projects that we have for this year. They're all what we call community-based. And so using that priority-based budgeting concept, livable communities, robust, resilient economy, these are all the attributes that are looked at when a person putting in the project is looking at when they score it, basically. How it engages the community, how it sustains infrastructure, and then the health and safety of the community. So continuing on, some of these things are, how does that align? And so there's extreme alignment, there's no alignment, there's minor alignments. So these are all the different things that each department is putting into the software to determine how it comes up with a score. And then again, we're also looking at the number of community, the percentage of community that's impacted. It's 10%, 50%, or a major portion of the community. Is there cost recovery, yes or no? Is it a mandate, yes or no, federal mandate, et cetera. So again, the goal for this priority-based budgeting isn't to necessarily say a project's good or bad or should be put before another one. It's just to show a little bit more clarity, and I hate using that word transparency, but the whole point of it is to show the value of that project and the purpose of it and how it aligns with the strategic plan. Just a better, more concise way of rating a particular project, because I know that question has come up here before, you know, why this project, why not another project, that type of thing. And so this is a way of trying to achieve that answer. And as I mentioned, the first year we've implemented it, and I know going forward we'll probably make some changes to it. So jumping into the actual CIP, the corrected number, I believe, is 138 projects that have been identified. Changed a little bit from the original report, and the total amount's a little over 280 million, so approximately 286 million. Kind of just going over some of the highlighted projects, and these projects are the projects that we are looking at for this next coming year, 2023, 2024. Obviously, there are projects that are going to go out, you know, up to the 6-year mark. Some of these are projects that are every year, but these are just the ones that I'm going to highlight for this coming year. And these projects are, for the most part, the more expensive projects that we have, so that's why I've highlighted them. Fire department, and again, we do have representation here. I will kind of cover that a little bit after I complete. But fire department has the Station 8 replacement, which is currently at Powell and Truman Road. It'll replace, or it'll be replaced with a new station on 78 Highway and to be combined with an existing training facility. Police department, they have the mobile command post. Sounds really interesting. I don't have a whole lot of details on that, but we do have representation here that I'm sure can talk a little bit more detail about that. Several parks and recreation projects, the Benham Wagner upkeep for internal and exterior repairs, along with the Vail Mansion, also internal and exterior repairs. The funds in here are a 50% match for basically it's a local tourism asset development grant, which is part of the, and I kind of messed up the acronym on this, it's actually backwards, but part of the American Rescue Plan Act had funding available for spurring tourism after the pandemic. So these two particular projects, those are the 50% matching funds for those grants. Another highlighted project for parks is the Santa Fe Trail Park Replacement Playground Project and adding a new gym floor to the Palmer Senior Center. Several highlighted Independence Power and Light projects. The Blue Valley Chimney Demolition Project, and if I understand it correctly, it's the removal of chimney number 3. Construction of a new substation S, which is a substation that's being designed to service the new North Point development along Little Blue Parkway. Primary Operations Center functional and code upgrades for systems operation work, and then they have the transmission pole replacement program, which is to replace 39 structures over the next 3 years. This is a program that inspected all the wooden transmission poles that appear to be completed in summer of 2021, and so that is a project for the next 3 years on that one. Municipal Services, as you know, has many, many projects. They typically do have the vast majority of every year CIP. This is just a few of the highlighted ones. The Annual Pavement Preventative Maintenance and Operations Project. This is commonly known kind of the mill and overlay project that they do. It's a little bit more than just mill and overlay. They're looking at different methods, street sealing and things of that nature, crack sealings, crack filling, in order to maintain our street network. I believe that one primarily comes out of the street sales tax, and so it's one of their larger projects that they do annually. The 24 Highway Complete Streets project, which I know we've talked about here before, based on some other projects that we've seen before this commission. That one obviously is to MoDOT to help safety. It's also a complete street. It's got a 10-foot wide, it's got a center turn lane, continuous turn lane. It's got a 10-foot wide shared use path on the south side, and then a 5-foot wide sidewalk on the north side. The Little Blue Parkway and I-70 interchange project. This involves ramps, turn lanes, and traffic signals, and this is actually to improve. This is part of the North Point project as well. That's what spurred this particular project, and I believe that's a cost share with MoDOT that we're currently working in with that project. Municipal Services also has the storm and sanitary projects. So storm sewer projects for this year, Rock Creek watershed pipe repair. This is to repair old existing corrugated metal that has since rusted out in the entire Rock Creek watershed. Sewer projects include the Clarifier Rehabilitation Project, which will rehabilitate the primary second clarifier rake arms and weirs. It's part of the sewer treatment plant. Grit removal improvements. That is part of the Rock Creek Pump Station, which will also improve some of the screening at that station. That particular pump station manages approximately 60% of the waste stream from the Rock Creek treatment plant. Lastly, we do have water projects. The biggest project that they have coming this year is the main replacement program. This is funds put aside to basically upgrade and make any necessary modifications to the city's water distribution system, resulting from any improvements that are made in conjunction with other city infrastructure, road projects, developments, et cetera. So it's a pretty significant project for them. The Courtney Bend Plant Emergency Generator Project, which will increase the reliability of the city's water source in the event of electrical power outages. It's also there to help reduce the demand on energy that's provided by the plant to help lower energy costs. The treatment plant discharge project also includes engineering design of facilities to treat residuals from the Courtney Bend water treatment plant to comply with future regulations. So with that, that's primarily kind of my brief overview of some of the projects that we have coming on in the CIP. We do have representatives from each department. I do appreciate all of them coming here, as I know this commission does as well. They all work full-time, and so to take their time out to come here and speak with us, I really do appreciate that. I would ask, again, that police and fire is here. They do have the least number of projects, so if you have questions, if you can ask those questions of them first, I would appreciate that. And I would ask for the commission to try to keep your questions on point to the actual capital projects. As you know, there's a ton of projects here. There's a lot of them. There's a whole group of staff and everybody working in the background on all these projects. So everyone here has to kind of make sure they get a briefing on each one of these, and it's tough. So please try to keep your questions more direct to the actual capital project. I would ask if you if you have a question, and what I can do is I can ask the representative to come up, and representatives, if you can give us your name and maybe answer the question, I'd be appreciative of that. So with that, I will finish my report. Is there a question?
I got a question for fire.
Yep.
If they would want to come up. My question is going to be the replacement of Station 5. Is that not one of our newest stations that's built since we moved it from Sterling over to 35th Street about, 10, 15 years ago, maybe 20? I don't know exact date.
Station 5?
Yes, Station.
Yes, I'm Kirk Stobart, Deputy Fire Chief,
Okay.
Madam Chairman, Commission members. So Station 5 was actually built in the late 70s.
Late 70s, okay.
Correct. It sits out in front of the Firehouse Park, actually is what it's called. And when it was built on top of a natural spring, which is causing the station to actually fall into the ground.
So that's what's happening?
Yes, actually, one of the old council members actually told me a story when they first opened that station. They drove the fire truck around for the first time, and it collapsed in the driveway. So it was just really a poor location, and it's in dire need of replacement. So.
So we're looking to buy land around there? Are we going to move it completely, or what?
Correct. We do not have land to build on other than that park area, but we are. My understanding is we're actively searching for a place to put and rebuild Fire Station 5.
Okay, I mean, I was trying to figure out why. Now you answered the question. I'm just trying to figure out what happened when we built this. Was there not a spring there or something? I mean, you probably don't know that answer. So, but I mean, that's $7 million now. Is that just for the building, or is that going to be land and building for $7 million? Do you know?
I do not believe that includes the land on the $7 million. So.
Okay. And we don't know what we're going to do with the property we have there already, the fire station's
It's a
already
city park right now.
It's a city
right
park.
behind it.
Let's probably say that then. Okay, well, I just want people to know why we're having to do Station 5, because a lot of people probably say, well, that's a newer station, so I don't know what's happening. So I'd like to have the answer. So we know that it's fallen down, but there's no way to fix it, I guess, what's happening.
I believe that one's actually our third oldest station. So Station 8, which is built in 68, I think, and then Station 1, and I believe Station 5 is right in there with Station 2 and Station 5 were built around the same time, I believe.
Okay, well, I remember them moving that one from there to there. That's all I remember that, so I didn't know exact dates. On Station 11, I know you probably don't know this, but when we had this thing probably a year ago, we were told that we were going to get money to build a fire station and stuff and pumpers out there at North Point area, for that area. What is happening there? Why is the citizens having to pay for this? Why is it not coming from help from North Point?
Do you want to answer this one? Okay.
I was going to say, so understand a lot of the North Point is associated with CID funding as well as grant funding. In particular, with this, I know a lot of that gets paid back through the CID. So in a way, it is kind of a roundabout way of the development paying for it. Other than that, I don't know if you have any further.
Yeah, my understanding of the history of the location there next to Center Point is where the property is. I believe is where our intention of building the station. Originally, with the original sales tax, it was we had intended to have a combined communication center for dispatch, police building, something of that nature. That was kind of the penciled in drawing, and the communication center ended up getting built over by the Independence Utility Center,
Right.
the old MCI building. So the funds that were going to build the combined fire station and police building actually got spent on the communication center at a different location. So that money intentionally for that was spent, but it was spent on the communication center.
Okay, so basically, all this 6.5 million is gonna come out of the fire department taxes, is that right? Or is it gonna be coming from the general fund?
It was slated to be out of the public safety sales tax that was increase that was passed a couple years
So
ago.
this will come out of that sales tax?
Correct.
Okay. I mean, but let's see, let's go back here. Is the land being given to us by North Point, or are we gonna have to purchase it?
I believe this was given to us by CenterPoint.
On this one, I'd have to look and,
Okay, I just,
see.
I mean, this way we have it on record, so what, because I was told that North Point was gonna, I mean, we sat here and I asked them about
So-
all these things, and they said they're gonna
so
pay.
North Point was looking at donating a piece of property there, but I'd have to go back and look specifically at this location.
Okay, well, I just want to make sure that we know that North Point's not paying for any of this, so. I think that's the only thing I have for fire.
Any other questions for fire? Yes, not?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, for the PD generator replacement that we got coming up, the 200,000?
Mobile command post.
No, this is the PD generator replacement.
Okay, hold up, let me have him say his name.
Oh, okay.
Madam Chairman, members of the commission, I'm Adam Dustman, the Chief of Police for the Independence, Missouri Police Department.
The PD generator that you guys need replaced there, is that going to be one that we can move if we get a new building, or is it going to be something that's going to get lost there? Do you have any idea?
I don't have any specifics for that.
know
Mike,
anything
Are,
about
are
Rick?
you, which project are you referring to?
It looks like generator just says PD. I'm thinking that was police department, but maybe not.
Yeah, I think the police only have the mobile command
Okay.
center.
Okay, I see. Well, the mobile one, I don't mind that. That's a good thing. Anybody else want any questions about it?
Perhaps give a brief overview of
Sure.
what that is.
So the Mobile Command Center is a response vehicle that we run all of our operations out of on any major crime scene, critical incident. Most recently, you probably saw in the news, we had the barricade where the 3 Kansas City, Missouri police officers were shot off of Blue Ridge. We were unfortunately not able to use our command center that we currently use, which was actually purchased in '06 out of the public safety sales tax at that time for breath alcohol testing. So it was an actual small vehicle that was designed to process impaired drivers. Through our previous mobile command center that was a large RV, similar to what you would see in other departments, it became dilapidated and beyond serviceable repair, so it was surplused in 2014, and we've just been limping the bat van, as we call it, along. But it is operationally inefficient, and now with all of our technological upgrades, the radios, the computer that is in there are no longer operational or functional. So that vehicle has become unserviceable at this point as well. So it is time for us in our operations to replace that. We've been waiting to have the fund balance in the use tax to be able to do so, which we are proud to be able to have at this point through good stewardship there. And so we are able to have that fund balance to support this purchase. It's in its entirety. The operations that go on inside of a mobile command center, again, for a barricade or homicide scene, major crime scene, we will pull that up. Again, we're there for this last one, we were there for just under 20 hours on scene, rotating personnel in and out. All of our SWAT team command operations get relayed back and forth there through our crisis negotiators that gets collaborated with inside of that vehicle, along with our investigative collaboration with prosecutor's office, getting search warrants and things like that. Crimes that we may discover that are going on either inside the location or have occurred prior to or subsequent to our action. And then all the command stuff from my team that come on scene and oversee all of that. So then we would also have, in the incident of a mass casualty or mass disaster, we would liaison with our folks, Friends at Fire, as well as emergency preparedness. That vehicle would be necessary. Hopefully, we will never experience some sort of a massive incident at one of our schools, but as you've seen all too recently on television, those vehicles are stationed up there for days on end while they conduct those investigations. So it's a necessary piece of our operational equipment. Since we've submitted this for the CIP program, it looks like still underneath the $1.5 million valuation that we have in there. We're going to do a 2-vehicle unit, one of which will be, we're looking at a vendor for around the $200,000 mark that would be more of a van, like a transit van type style command post that would be smaller. That way we don't have to get the big one out if we don't need it on a smaller incident. And then we would also have a place for responding units in the staging location that we would set up for inner and outer perimeter operations in that vehicle while we have the bigger vehicle for these long incidents that are long in duration.
I have a question. How long does it take to get one of these vehicles when we order it?
That's a good question. Anywhere from a year to year and a half at this point. We're just under the fire department apparatus 2-year lead time. The van type mobile command center is usually, we probably were anticipating getting that under a year. If we get that in, we could probably get that a lot sooner just because it's a modular unit that this vendor that we're evaluating is local. The other ones are coming from the big national purveyors of mobile command centers. So we're probably a year plus out unless supply chain pressures ease.
Okay, my next question is going to be, if we get the bigger vehicle, are we going to have someplace to put that inside instead of not stored outside like the other one was?
Correct. So we will, what we would do is play the shuffle game. We'll take our bat van, which where it's currently housed is in our Penniston, our special operations building. It has a full bay right next to it, and it'll be the same size. We're not looking at the big RV type. We're looking at what I'll call the medium-sized vehicle, which would be equivalent to what our bomb truck is. So if you've seen the bomb truck size, and they would be parked side by side.
Okay,
in
so
that
we're not
facility.
looking at a motorhome one then?
Correct. It'd be the size down from that.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions? We're good. Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
I do have, so for your PD generator, that is actually a municipal services project. It's a facilities maintenance project.
Okay.
So that is a backup generator for the police station.
Okay.
And I did just verified with Lisa Reynolds, our municipal services director, that is intended to be a portable unit.
Okay, so it is going to be portable, so it can be moved, so,
Yes.
okay. I was curious because we're talking about a new place, and I hate to put a generator there and not be able to move it.
Good point. Thank you. Okay. I lost, there's so many sheets up here.
There's so many sheets of
Who do we have next?
Who do we have next?
Well, did you have any specific questions? I guess maybe
Well,
let's
let's
just
go,
do
let's
it
go.
that way.
Well, my biggest thing is going to be the North Point thing. You
Okay.
got several things here that are down that avenue. We got electrical. I mean, electrical's got it split up into 3 different categories, and I don't understand why it's 3 different categories, but it should be all in one. I mean,
So I will defer that one to Jim Null, our our IPL director.
okay.
Good evening, Jim Nail, IPL Director.
Thank you.
To answer your question, it's split up into different categories because we've got several different discrete segments of this project. There's going to be improvements that are necessary to transmission lines, there's distribution networks that are going to have to be built out, and then there's the actual substation itself. So just for the purposes of managing the projects, we broke that up into those different chunks.
Okay, so basically, is North Point going to help pay for any of this or not, or?
There's a couple of different avenues we have. One, we are pursuing some infrastructure improvement grants that would help to pay a portion of that. Of course, then the question is how soon would we get the money? But then the other, the North Point project did agree to establish a CID, and as those monies are generated, they would reimburse us for some of those expenses. But we're going to have to front the money up first and then have them to repay us as they go.
Okay, my next question is, are they gonna get a reduced rate on their electricity when they come online, or are they gonna pay full price like everybody else?
They will be treated like any other customer. If they qualify for our economic discount rider, which is one of the rates in our rate package.
Right.
Whatever rate and each of their buildings is gonna actually be a different account. So depending on the usage and the amount of energy in that particular building, that'll determine the rate for that.
Okay, I just wanna make sure we stand to that and not give them the electricity at cost, because in other words, we're paying, what, close to $30 million for this electrical stuff, and that city taxpayers and city people are paying for them.
Their rates will be determined just like any other industrial
Well, I know
customer.
they'll be determined, but I want to make sure we stand to it and not give them a big discount, because, I mean, this is supposed to be a $1 billion project, but so far, the city's putting out all the money, and they're not putting out anything, is the way I see it. So I'm kind of upset on this, because they sat right here and told us that they weren't going to ask for any of this stuff, and then they went and asked for all this tax abatement and CIP stuff. So it really makes me kind of, because I know we had school people here thinking they were going to get money for taxes, and they're not going to get it for at least 20, 30 years. So that's a problem. So I'm just telling you.
I can't answer that.
know
All
you
I can say
can't
is,
answer that.
like I said, we're going to
know.
try to recoup some of it through grants and then some of it through the CID.
Madam Chair. Mr. Now, I think one of the overarching questions for me, and whether or not controversial, we don't know the future, but if we don't have a IPL in the future, or we decide to go another route with what we do for our energy, whether we own it or not, can you determine, based on this 6-year plan, what things we are doing that may not be necessary in the future versus things that we absolutely still have to do?
Yes, ma'am. The real question is the difference between energy and the transmission and distribution network. A lot of the controversy that we've been talking about for the last 2 years is what to do with our generation or our capacity. That's a completely separate issue. Here, we're talking about improving our infrastructure so that we can deliver the electricity to those sites. Right now, the substation coming out from the south is pretty well fully loaded. We do have some plans to shift some loads around to free up some power, but the east side, we've held off developing the network out there for years because obviously the development just didn't come. Now that it is, with the projected load growth in the valley, if it goes as aggressive as what they've projected, we could be at a point where our current transmission and distribution network on the east side is maxed out within in the 5 to 10 year range. And it's going to take some of the equipment, some of the larger equipment. We've gotten delivery estimates in the 3 to 5 year range just to get the equipment. So we have to start now so that we're ready by the time the system is overloaded.
Fair enough, thank you.
Now, do we have the property for Substation S yet?
The North Point Development has identified a section of property that they're going to donate. Right now, we have an engineering study going on to verify that it's going to be suitable for an electrical substation.
Okay, so you're saying like the feeders and stuff are going to be, well, I don't know if that one, they're going to be 3 to 5 years before we get them?
But the substation equipment, the big transformers, the switchgear cabinets, those are on the 3 to 5 year range. Some of the other equipment, right now we're seeing 2 to 3 year time deliveries on some of the suppliers.
And they got to be paid for up front, or do we pay them once we get them?
We'll have to obligate the money because we'll have to have a purchase order authorized by the city council, which will obligate the funds, but we won't actually pay for it until we get it.
Okay.
There may be some on some of the really large equipment. There may be some upfront deposits that have to be made, but most of that money, it'll be spent as we use it, but we have to obligate it when we issue the purchase orders and the contracts.
Okay. My next question is going to be your Desert Storm switchgear cabinets. $250,000. What's going on there? I mean, it's a lot of money a year.
These are switchgear cabinets that are scattered all over the city. They're older. They call them Desert Storm because they're a sandy brown color. That's the only important piece there, but
Okay.
they're exposed to the weather. The cabinets themselves are starting to leak and corrode. Over the last couple of years, we've had several of them fail. I would much rather replace them on our schedule than their schedule.
Right.
So
Okay,
this
so
is
that's what
this is a systematic schedule to go through and start replacing all of those cabinets throughout the city.
Okay. The $1.5 million for the demolish of the chimney, is it dangerous or something, or is that's what's going on there?
We have pushed that out to the 24-25
Right.
schedule. We are having an engineering review and an estimate done of it this year to check the condition. Last year when it was, or 2 years ago when it was examined, they said it was still structurally sound. It does have some cracks, but none that are considered structurally threatening yet. But eventually it
Can't
is
go
going to
there and
have,
put- we
it is
can't
going to
just
have
go
to
push
come
it down
down.
with one of our bulldozers and save some money?
Well, unfortunately, at the time that was built, a lot of the fire brick was made with asbestos, so
Oh,
it's going to
that's-
have a full containment and engineering team to pull that down.
Oh, okay, well, that's the
That
reason why.
changes
they-
things.
I'd love to have the CBs come in and let them practice demolition, but that's not going to work.
Okay, the fiber optic network, what are we replacing? I mean, we got, of course, the $700,000 over the next 6 years. They don't go bad, so what's going on there?
It's not the fiber itself, it's all the junctions and the devices that convert the light into signal and connect that network throughout all of our system and the city buildings. Many of those are now obsolete, they're no longer serviceable.
Wow, okay, so has this been, I see it's budgeted now, but has it been budgeted in the past, or is it?
It has.
Okay, I just want to make sure that's,
That's why these are fluid. Some things get done, some things don't.
well, I just want to make sure this maintenance stuff's on there correctly. The truck shed, well, for $1 million for next year. Don't we have some sheds already that we put trucks in, and?
At Power and Light, we have limited shed space, so most of our bucket trucks sit out in the weather.
Okay, and they've been doing that for years too, right?
They've been doing that for years.
Okay, so
We'd like to take better care of them.
where we plan on building this at that we're thinking about?
Possibly where the old coal pile was at the Blue Valley site.
At the Blue
It
Valley
would
site?
it would be there at our service center.
Okay. So that would be enough? Is it gonna be totally enclosed, or?
That's strictly a back of the
Lean-to?
napkin estimate. We've not designed anything yet.
So this, well, what's the $1 million for then?
That would be that's our estimate of what it would cost to construct the full-size truck shed.
Okay, so how many trucks are we talking?
I'd have to get back to you on that.
Okay, well, because people will probably ask the question, how many trucks we doing and stuff like that? Because we already have some truck sheds area, right?
We've got, like I said, we just have limited shed space there at Power and Light. So most of our bucket trucks sit out in the rain.
Okay. I did see a couple things that I thought were redundant. You got poles, you got your 39 transmission poles, I guess they're bad.
The 202111, that is the systematic replacement of poles that were identified through that survey. The 202405, where you have $250,000 every year programmed out, that's really a contingency fund. We know we're going to have poles that get damaged. We know we're going to have poles that will fail, and we're making sure we have money to address that as they happen. Those funds would not be rolled over from year to year. It would just be, we're estimating we need $250,000 this year.
Oh, so in other words, we say we got a fund there, as long as it's got 250,000 for next year, we're fine, we don't have to put any more in it?
Correct. That's our estimate.
Okay. I just want, so, I see, well, how can you put that in, because the way it sees right now, we're gonna cost us 250 each year, so I mean,
Anything we
No,
don't,
just
if we
once.
don't use that much, it'll just be released
Right,
back.
it should roll over.
I understand
Yeah.
rolling over, but.
No, we're not going to roll over. That's
you're
the-
not.
We're not going to. We've had a practice in the past where if we had $1 million for a project and we only spent 800, the project stayed alive and that 200 would roll to the next year. And let's say we think we need another 800,000, now we're back to $1 million. That just kept rolling. There was one, when I took over as director, there was one project number that's dated back to 2008, and it just kept moving.
Well, that's not good accounting.
Well, no, and they
You
would
gotta
be,
close them out.
they actually turned into slush funds to, well, we've got extra money in this account, let's transfer some to this one because we had higher costs. We're not doing that. We're gonna estimate 250,000 for this year. If we use it, we use it. If we don't, we'll release those, close that project and release those funds so they would not be spent.
So you're closing out projects now?
We'll be closing out projects
Okay.
every fiscal year.
Okay, well, that sounds good there, but, I mean, because, okay, so be clear. Well, my thing is, though, the extra, okay, say we don't use the 250,000, where's the money sitting at right now then,
It's our reserves.
in your reserves? Okay. It's just, it's there, it's not making sense where it's going then once it comes back to us. I'd have to see that. Okay, that's a question, good one there. So this 400,000 a year is just like that too then, slush fund?
Which one is that?
I'm trying to figure, you said a number, and I don't even see numbers on them. I just got emergency maintenance production.
Emergency maintenance for, that's in our production fleet, our combustion turbines. Unfortunately, when things break, they cost a lot, so.
Well, yeah, I see we got one turbine we're replacing, sounds like we should have replaced it before, or we had it rebuilt and then it blew apart or something?
The combustion turbine 5 had a
Yeah.
generator fault that we fixed last year. Now there's a vibration problem on the other end, the turbine end of it, and so that's what the cost, what you see those, the 2028-01 and 2029-02, those are the major overhaul inspections that they do every so many thousand
years.
hours of runtime.
Okay.
So we're projecting that out in the 28-29 timeframe.
So maintenance,
The maintenance one, that's every year, that's in case one of them has a gearbox failure or some other fault, we'll have to have maintenance
So
ones.
this will be another one that will be closed out at the end of the year if we don't use it, so we'd have extra money.
Exactly.
Okay, so the extra money just gets rolled back into,
Instead of coming out of our reserves, it'll just stay in there.
well, it's gotta be budgeted through the city, so that's what I'm trying to figure out. The budget doesn't come out of reserves, budget comes out of working capital that we take up from our, so that's why it's not making sense. If it stays there, we're not putting it back into the city part. That's not making sense. Somebody's gonna have to make sense of it for me.
Well,
if they
the
could.
Power and Light Fund, if we end up, our revenue does not, if our revenue doesn't match what we spent for the year, that excess comes out of our reserves, our cash reserves.
Okay.
If we,
How much cash reserves are we wanting to keep on hand? That's gonna be the next question.
our threshold, our minimum threshold's 25 million, the goal is about 60.
60 million, we're setting that.
We were at, around, I think, about 50 million at the end of the last fiscal year.
Okay. Well, we got some problems there with math on that, if you ask me, but.
Well, why don't you submit those in an email?
Yeah,
And
that's
they
what
can
I'll
answer
have-
them more clearly.
I'll have to do that, yeah.
Yeah, why don't we do that?
So we're going to buy the transmission lines is that from KCPL, is that right? The 169?
Part of our objective with that would be to go ahead and purchase that line. That's the segment that comes from Lake City back to our Blue Valley station. Because we don't have anything coming off of that line, we just have left that in. It's in our system, but it's owned by Kansas City or Evergy.
Yeah, Evergy, yeah.
So if we're going to build the substation there at that location, it would make sense to tie in the rest of the system from that substation back to the Blue Valley site. So that would be, we would approach Evergy and talk to them about doing that.
And you guys already talked to them about it and everything?
Not yet.
Not yet? Well, how do we know what price is going to be then?
That's just an estimate based on our engineering firms.
Okay. Okay, at least it's an estimate, I guess, okay. But, let's see.
Why don't we jump in real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
One of the things that I noted, and this is just an overall view, is that what I'm excited about this is that it seems like you all are being more proactive and rather than reactive, which always costs us more. So I'm actually pretty impressed. So thank you.
Thank you.
I did see something, I'm trying to find it here, upgrades to, changing areas and stuff down at the for personnel. I'm trying to remember where it's at, though. Trying to remember.
You're talking about the service center upgrades, 2024-06?
Yeah, something, I don't have numbers, but yeah. Where it's painting and things like that, what's wrong?
The service center there on Truman Road, the service center is 40-plus years old. There's a lot of things that need to be done. If we do tear into it, then we got to bring it up to code. So there's going to be, it's not just going to be a matter of putting a fresh coat of paint on. We're going to have to go in and redo some of the plumbing, some of the electrical, and it's going to cost.
So where's that at again?
This is our service center that's there at Truman and 78,
Truman 78.
where the old Blue Valley Power Plant was.
Right.
is.
Where it is, okay. So basically, it's redoing that facility there,
Correct.
okay. Now, is that the whole facility or just changing areas?
We would target it to make sure we'd identify what's the most critical needs, and we would hit those first. But the our primary operations center, where we control our transmission and distribution system, that's located in there. All of our space for the warehouse and the transmission and distribution crews, that's all located in there. Our meter shop, our communications team, all of that's in that building. So there's a number of areas that need to be addressed.
Okay, because what it said at first was basically the locker areas and things like that. So I was wondering, are we just doing the locker areas, or are we doing the whole thing?
We'll be looking at different parts of different areas within the whole building, but we're not redoing the entire building, but we'll target specific areas.
Okay, so it's basically 40 years old or plus. That's what the reason was. Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next questions for whom?
Well, it's whoever wants to come up next. Water? Sorry, guys. He's got.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Matt McLaughlin, Deputy Director of the Water Department. Questions, I'll happy to answer.
Okay, Matt, I got treatment plant discharge for $1 million. What's going on there? What's that? Is that a want or a need, or what's happening there?
That is a need. It's an Environmental Protection Agency mandate that's coming down for our treatment residuals. Currently, we discharge to the Missouri River. They're looking up and down the river at all of the water treatment plants along the Missouri River to see if we need to make a change on that. We've got to look at, right now we're doing a study on what our options are, if we can continue to discharge, or if we would have to go to the expense of processing that residual land, applying it, or the worst would be where we'd have to landfill it. So right now we're under study. We expect from that study, I don't want to put the cart before the horse here, but we hope that we can continue to discharge, but we know there's going to be some large capital improvements that we'll have to make at the plant. So that $1 million.
$1 million to study, 10 million be the project?
Down the road, yes.
I mean, that's
possibly.
what it looks like, 10 million
Yes.
down the road for the project?
We've actually started the background for that study. The $1 million is going to be probably mostly towards the engineering of those capital improvements later, those $10 million that you're talking down the road.
Well, then that $1 million, is it outsourced, or are we doing it ourselves?
No, we'll hire a consulting firm to complete those designs.
Okay, because we don't have anybody capable doing that.
Not to that extreme. We're talking.
Okay, so that's probably, is that will have to do with, let's see. I don't know if you had to do with this one.
Madam Chair, can I ask a question related to that one real quick?
Yes, go ahead.
Earlier in the overview from the city, you said sometimes there would be mandates that some of those funds we'd be able to claw back, maybe get from grants or other shared resources. Do you know in particular if something with the EPA on this
I mean, I don't have any specific for this particular project, but anytime there's opportunities for any of our departments to apply for grants and that can help fund any of these projects, that's always something that we do and we attempt to do.
So the emergency generator down at the Courtney Bend plant, what's going on there?
We pushed that off a year. We've got, well, one thing was these treatment residuals came up, so we thought we moved that up actually to spend that $1 million. It's still under consideration, the emergency generator plant or project. We've got dual feed right now. We've got our emergency interconnects with Kansas City to meet in the event that we would lose power. Typically, like I said, we've got a dual feed, two-directional feed to the plant. If we lose power on one of those, we can run the entire plant off of the other one.
Right.
So we have a backup. We've considered putting a generator in for a long time. It's a very large capital expenditure for something you hope to never have to use.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. It's actually moved out a year. That should be in 24, 25, the project actually. And that's part of the corrections that Rick sent you, that has moved from this next year out another year because
Well, is that a want or a need that we need? Is it something we want because in case something does, put it this way, has it ever happened yet?
we have lost power to the plant, but it's been, I want to say, over 25 years since it's happened that we lost all power to the plant.
And we had dual feeds back then?
We did, but it was a extreme. We had a lightning storm, which knocked out one of our feeds. Then we had a traffic accident that caused a down line on the other end. It was a
Freak accident, but
yes,
it did happen.
So that's what we're still under consideration on that. That's a very large capital expenditure, and it's hard to say we're going to spend this and you
So
know.
basically, it's more like a want than a need, because basically, we're probably looking more at water lines that need to be replaced versus having that. So we probably have to even put that off even further, is what the way you're talking.
Yeah. That's
Okay.
why we're going through, we're making sure all of our emergency interconnects with Kansas City are up to snuff. We can use those if we need to. We improved our Truman booster station recently. Our dual power, they're in good shape, but there are some benefits to having a generator. It's a tough consideration. We're really trying to go through and figure out, should we be spending that money, or is it better spent in other areas, like you say, main replacements?
Now, okay, I'm off of that one now. Next question for you. Our water is good, right? We're like 2, 3 nation, something like that? Or have we dropped?
This year we did not place, I don't believe, in the world competition that we normally enter. So at least not top 5 in the world. We're still waiting on the results. We might place in the top 5 in the nation, but not in the world.
Okay.
So
Why are we getting I can't even find it now, but something to do something to the water? I can't remember what it was called. And I can't find it. There's so many sheets.
a mandate, or I mean,
No, it's you guys want to put in something I can't remember, add something or take something out of the water. And I'm trying to remember what it was. Oh, man, I wish I could find it. Well, they got a plant they want to build for like $5 or $6 million or something to do something to the water. I saw it, and I gotta find it again. Yeah, that's it, yeah.
a what? That would be on a sewer
Oh, that's
side,
over there
yeah.
on that one. Okay, well, I thought it had to do with water.
Yeah, that's a sewer.
Well, it's got the other end. I mean,
Okay,
it's still water.
Okay, well, I thought it had to do with that, so. But other than that, the $5.5 million, I'm thinking we probably need to put that off, because, I mean, we got other things that are more important. I mean, it sounded like maybe we got water lines that got to be, and you brought that up, and he just added that, and that went up quite a bit once they got the new numbers in. That was a lot for replacing. Is that going to continue on for the rest of our lives, or is that something we plan on slowing down?
That is a plan that's, I mean, for the foreseeable future will not change. It will only increase. Our goal there is to get to 1% of our water mains replaced every year. Right now we're approaching 770 miles of main, so that's over, between 7 and 8 miles of water main that we have to replace every year. When we started this program, we were looking at about $800,000 to $900,000 per mile to replace main. Depending upon size and whatnot, it does vary. But now, with the supply chain issues, the cost of everything going up, we're looking at $1.3, $1.4 million a mile. So that's why we're trying to increase. We're trying to get there. We're doing that 1% because if you can, do the math in your head, you're looking at a 100-year life on your mains at that rate. We do have mains dating back to the 1880s. They're doing just fine. But we've got a lot of mains that were installed in the 1950s that are not doing very well at all. They changed the thickness of the pipe. Yep, you're right. And those are the ones that are giving us fits right now. So we're trying to get through those, and then it's a proactive thing. We're trying to, the more we can replace, the less emergency breaks that we're having to go out in the middle of the night, less interruptions to people. That these replacements can reduce those. We do have a short time that people are going to be interrupted while we're switching over to the new main. We can also get them out from underneath the roads, so we're not tearing up the roads when they break. It's a good program, but it does cost money, and we're trying to get it done. It's a lot to take off or complete in a year, but we're trying to get there.
Is that outsourced or insourced?
It's a combination of both. We've done a lot of design as much as we can do in-house, and then we partner with others, consulting firms. We'll have the consulting firms do the original survey and whatnot to get the design done, but we can do most of the designs in-house. As we continue to grow the program, we may have to farm some of that out to more consulting or increase our engineering staff.
I was going to say, would it be better off cost-wise for us to increase our staff instead of outsourcing it?
Yeah, if we can consistently do it, then, and we've looked at, we've done some pilot studies of actually installing some of it ourselves, and then also by contractor, the installation process. So we're trying to weigh and make the best use of our funds for both.
Okay, as long as we're looking at that, I mean, like I say, we don't want to waste our money, because, I mean, that's part of the tax money and I guess the fees that we pay, so.
Yeah, no, it's if we can get a dedicated crew to do it, then it makes sense for us to do it. But what we struggle with is having enough staff on hand to complete that installation and not have a break interrupt them to where they get pulled away and they're doing other things. We don't want to be in a neighborhood any longer than we have to and have a disruption, tearing up the yards and the street and whatever not. We want to get in and get out. A contractor that can get in and get out can do that a lot faster a lot of times because they can focus one of their crews and get it done. So
Okay.
that's what we got to weigh too, the interruption to the neighborhoods and whatnot.
Okay. Thank you for that answer.
Yep.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Okay.
Again,
Thank you.
exciting that we're planning for the future, and it does cost. There's a cost, but in the end, we'll save money.
So I would say, so we do have municipal services and parks.
Okay.
I think those are the only two left. We have Alex Lopez, the acting city engineer, and we do have the director here, so I don't know if you guys want to start with one or the other, or...
Who would I ask questions to about, like, the Vel?
That would be parks.
Parks. That's
And
how
they're
parks
not
come
here?
up.
They're virtual.
Oh, yes, you are.
She's on the
Yeah,
screen.
he's virtual.
Oh, on the screen.
Yeah,
Or he, I mean,
he's
sorry.
virtual.
Okay, state your name.
Hi, Morris Heidi, Director of Parks, Recreation, Tourism. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes. Madam Chair.
Yes. Go
All
ahead.
right, Morris. My biggest question is previously to this year, I heard year after year, deferred maintenance, deferred maintenance. So when I look at the budget, it looks like there's still 6 years between some of this maintenance at Bingham Wagner, Vale, and then nothing maintained for another 6 years. Can you kind of address past failings of not maintaining these properties? And then is this budget and what you're proposing for capital improvements is this going to be something that will maintain them to the level in which we need them in order to improve, increase, expand our tourism?
Yeah, great question. If you recall, well, maybe you don't recall, I believe it was February of last year, I did a presentation of the City Council, I think it was February 28th of 2022, regarding the history of trains and guest tax, which is the revenue for the tourism fund. Showed a history from about, I want to say, again, that was about a year ago, 2015 through 2021, and the amount of revenue that actually had been used for marketing versus historic sites maintenance. And I think it ranged from, basically 0 up to about maybe 6 or so %. Don't quote me on that. It's been a year since I presented that. But long story short, very minimal amount had been budgeted. So that has been an ongoing issue, maintenance for the historic sites. With the current CIP, the current budget this year, we tried to budget kind of some one-time funding to address some issues. We had an opportunity to apply for the ARPA funding, the COVID relief funding from the federal government. So what you see in the budget is actually funds for the 50% match for that grant. We don't know at this point whether we will receive that grant. Originally, we applied for the grant in December. Originally, we were told that they would award the grant or notify individuals by January. That has been moved to late March at this point, so we still don't know whether we will receive that grant or not. But we applied for over $1 million for each facility. And so what you don't see is the out years, because we don't know at this point what funding if we're going to receive that grant and what kind of match money we need to have in place. So that's kind of the funding for this year, as well as the money in the CIP for the Vail and Bingham, is really match money for that 50% ARPA grant that we're hoping to receive. So once we know whether we are going to receive that grant award, that'll really kind of set the stage for where we go at this point as far as the next couple of years for funding. As you know, the south side of the Vail is the biggest issue. That is projected to cost, I think the latest estimate was about $700,000 or $800,000. Again, that we can't spend any money now and use it towards that grant. It wouldn't be qualified if you spend funding before the grant is received. So we're kind of on hold at this point for maintenance and projects at both the Vail and the Bingham. So kind of a roundabout way to answer your question. Hopefully I covered the question that you had.
So if we're denied the match, you anticipate putting this amount into the following year's budget and keep moving it, keep applying?
Yeah, we would take the current money that we have budgeted this year, as well as the money we're budgeting for next year, and try to, again, apply that money as best we can to deal with the long-term maintenance issues at the Vail. The long-term challenge is we really don't have adequate funding to address the maintenance needs at both of those historic sites. I think that the city managers talked about that the last couple of years. Again, I talked to the city council last year on this subject, so need to explore opportunities for other funding sources. That's when this grant became available. We certainly were interested in applying for that grant, but that's kind of the position we're in currently.
Just a thought that went through my head with it applies but doesn't apply, but if we lose or when we lose Royal Stadium, we already know that's going to, hurt our tourism. So is there an option related to tourism tax or doing something, with Arrowhead as a part of that to gain or not to lose tourism dollars? I mean, is that a big concern of yours related to this particular maintenance project and ongoing maintenance?
Specifically to the Royals, if they choose to move the stadium, what we see is a lot of folks end up staying in Independence either anyway. So again, I don't know for sure what the Royals' long-term plans are in the stadium, but currently a lot of folks choose to stay in the suburbs like Independence, Lee Summit, or surrounding areas. So certainly that will have an impact on tourism dollars, but we're trying to leverage our dollars for tourism and marketing with Visit KC, who is the regional DMO for the area, for the county. And we see a lot of overflow from the Royals, Chiefs, other folks coming to the area and actually then getting out of the metro and the suburbs and visiting areas. So hopefully the impact of the stadium moving won't be that drastic on us, but again, time will tell on that.
Any other questions? My only comment would be, I'm glad that you're in the budget, which we always are, but I wish we could find a little more for you because we've got these two gems in the city, and it kind of makes me a little crazy that we don't invest in the two jewels that we have that are actually belong to us, and that we expect private donations to cover everything, and that's difficult. So that's my only comment. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So basically, last that we have is municipal services. Just because of the volume of projects that they have, I would maybe suggest if you can be a little bit more specific with your project questions, and then maybe we can look for some of more of the written responses for some of those questions, because they have the vast majority of projects in this year's CIP. So
get your pen and paper ready.
Sorry, so you're suggesting that we put the questions together via email and have them answered at a later time?
Yes, just because there's such a wide variety with municipal services. Understand they cover storm sewer, sanitary sewer, streets, facilities. So there's just a lot of projects there. So if you guys,
Well,
I
do
would
they
just say-
want us to vote on this tonight, or are we going to vote on it later?
Well, I mean, I would hope that you guys would vote on it tonight, but I'm just suggesting it just so, I know.
I mean, because how are we going to get answers if we
Yeah.
vote on it tonight, we don't know which way to answer?
I'm just suggesting to try to, keep
Now,
it.
then I'm going to
down.
suggest another question to you. How do we get some of these taken off to put down the road for later?
Well, understand,
We
this
can't do
is,
that.
this is a recommending body. So,
Okay.
I mean, ultimately, if you, let's say, didn't want to see a project move forward, then what you would do is you would make an amendment to have that taken off. It would have to be, first and seconded to have those projects removed. And then if it passed, it passed. If it didn't pass, then you would move forward with the approval of it. So,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, ultimately, just as with all our other decisions and votes, those are recommendations that go to city council. City council ultimately determines the budget for the capital projects.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I wouldn't mind hearing, just because there are so many projects, limited dollars. Maybe this is your opportunity to tell us what you prioritize.
Very limited dollars, but it depends on which fund you're talking about. So municipal services, like Rick mentioned, covers the sanitary sewer utility. So utility funds will cover part of these projects, street sales tax funds, stormwater sales tax funds, general fund, and then of course grant dollars to match. This year, municipal services went after grants and were successful in bringing in just under $36 or $7 million in grants to help offset a lot of the cost of these projects. Some of the ones you were asking earlier about North Point, so like the Little Blue interchange and the I-70, the ramp there. We are fronting the money for those projects, but actually it won't, neither of those two projects on your list for municipal services will actually end up costing the city any money. We are co-applicants because we needed to be for the grant dollars, but we're actually only facilitating the project, and then the reimbursement comes 100% back to us from either North Point or MoDOT in those cases.
Okay, good.
There's
That's one of my questions.
I thought it might be. There's a historic trails project for almost 1.4 million, 100% grant reimbursable. So several of these projects, the streetscape, as you know, $3 million coming from Congressman Cleaver's office, the Nolan Road corridor project, $10 million in grant funds for what should be roughly a $12 to $13 million project. So huge grant reimbursements
I'm gonna
on.
stop you on that one right there. Now, my question's gonna be, Kansas City just got in trouble for doing something like that on Truman Road. Are we still gonna move forward with something like that? Because there was a lot of businesses that got upset by putting that bike lanes in, because it took away parking. I know it has nothing to do with parking on Nolan Road, because there's not parking, but there's a lot of people gonna be upset about changing that road to 2 lanes.
I would say there's going to be a lot of people upset about change in general. Obviously, yes, the very first step to that, once we send it out for an RFQ for a design firm, would be a traffic study. So pending what that traffic study says, then we vote to move forward or not move forward based on if the traffic data comes back acceptable. Everything preliminarily says it will be fine, traffic will flow freely, especially with a continuous left turn lane going down through there. But we do the full scale study as part of the design work. And then the next, I say obviously part, but it's probably not obvious to all. Public meetings are a huge part of that project.
Right.
So there will be 2 or 3 meetings set up for public engagement and to solicit those comments, and then we try and factor those into the design moving forward.
Now, this is not a need for the city, but it's a want. Is there any way we could put these off for several years till we make sure we're gonna have funds coming in to help pay our portion of it? Because just like I heard last night, is that we're gonna be, might not make budget for this year or next year, I can't remember which one, because we don't know what's gonna happen to the economy. So is there any way we can put things like this off, or is it has to be going forward now? Is it a need or is it a want?
So, yes.
Yes.
And I say yes because we have an active ordinance on the books that says we have a complete streets policy. And what complete streets means is effectively transportation equity. It is not just vehicular traffic, it's pedestrian traffic, bicycle traffic, all forms of transportation, transit, and all those are accounted for in street design. So we do have a citywide active ordinance that tells us to pursue and design all street projects in this method. So that's why it's a need. And as far as can we push it off? Once we obtain grant funding, we're on a clock, and the clock for every grant is different. For instance, we obtained $10 million in ARPA funds this year for stormwater improvements. We have until 2026 to complete those. They're also on your list. So,
Well, that's gonna be another question. We got stormwater problems that have been out there for 20 years, and why are they keep getting pushed off? It's my gonna be question.
So every stormwater project that we have since the dawn of the stormwater sales tax has been scored under a matrix that prioritizes those projects. So based on the scoring, it has been prioritized, and the sales tax has been around since 2000, I think. So obviously millions and millions of dollars. It's roughly $4 million a year in really round numbers that goes towards storm projects. I'm assuming you're asking about 25th Street.
That's correct. That's one of them. I mean, I sat there and looked at them. A lot of them said their people's houses are getting flooded, so I'm saying there's a
So
lot
we
of
only
projects.
do the stormwater projects funded by the stormwater sales tax to this point have always and only included projects that involve structural flooding. Nuisance water in yards, nuisance ponding on streets even, has never been a part of the stormwater sales tax because there are so many projects in town that involve structural flooding. We have known structural flooding projects out that would take up to the next 8 years. So this isn't even done, this doesn't even wrap up everything that we know about today.
Okay.
We occasionally will find areas that as homeowners have changed over time, some homeowners used to be, oh, we just deal with this. And then we'll come to find out that there's 12 houses in this 2-block area that are all taking on water. So that then bumps the priority on that scoring matrix. But everything is done by an assigned score. Specific to 25th and Woodbury, that one has had recent development interest. And so it does seem, knowing that any development that goes into that adjacent property could change the stormwater flow into what's there, it doesn't necessarily make good sense to drop, I think that's a $600,000 project. So if we drop $600,000 on improvements, but then we require on-site detention of the developer,
Right. I understand that.
we wasted $600,000.
Right.
Where our goal would be to try and partner with any development that goes in there, and maybe we oversize the basin to account for that. And, it's a win-win for both sides.
I understand.
So that's the goal in that one, and why that one's been held just a little. But as far as it's been out there for years, all of our stormwater projects have been out there for years, and they're all scored and prioritized based on that score.
But do we keep kicking them on down because something else comes up? Is that what?
Only if something extremely outscores them that we didn't know about before. The other thing
that's like 20 years. That seems like to me, we've been kicking that one a long time. And then you probably weren't even around on that one, so it wasn't started.
I was not when that one officially made the books.
Yeah.
And another thing that you'll see on the stormwater side and the transportation side for the first time is an emergency construction CIP. The point of that is we've had so much, on the storm side, we've had so much failure of corrugated metal pipe that have caused major collapses. 42nd Street culvert that shut that down for quite some time. Jones Road culvert recently that's almost completed and finally wrapping up. They just collapse and take the street with them. And those aren't budgeted projects because all the budgeted projects are the homes flooding. So that's why you see those emergency construction. There are 4 things that pop up like those collapses. I will say with the ARPA funds and the $10 million that we received there, that's going specifically, $5 million of that is slated specifically for corrugated metal pipe replacement in the Rock Creek watershed. So we're trying to phase it all out of the system as much as possible, but we have miles and miles and miles of it in town, so it will be a slow and painful process.
Well, my question would be, is there any way to move some of this up, that the storm sewer stuff, compared to, there is a project I saw going for sidewalks down Lexington.
Those are totally
Two
different
different
funds.
ones? 2 different funds? Okay. So I didn't know
I
something
can't use sidewalk money for storm, and I can't use storm money for sidewalks.
Okay.
They do not mix.
I was just curious about that. Your trenchless technology, do we have a duplicate 2 of those?
We have one for storm and one for sanitary.
Oh, so
And
that's why
that's-
you got 2 different ones?
Yes, and that's simply lining pipes instead. We line them with a structural lining, so we effectively get brand-new life cycle out of them without having to excavate anything.
Nice.
So we're roughly, on the sanitary side, we're roughly 12 to 13% of our system has been lined to this point.
Okay, well, I was just curious. I saw it twice. That's why I was wondering if it was.
Storm and sanitary.
Okay,
Yep.
duplicate. That's all I was wondering about.
Madam Chair, I just have a general question for you. Number one complaint or thing that I hear people talk about is sidewalks or lack of. How do you prioritize where those go? And I saw several in here. So are those kind of like with the storm drains that they raise to the top and?
Sidewalks are tricky.
Yeah.
And again, this one, and I've only had the old public works side of the world for a couple years, so I say even trickier for me. Currently prioritized around the old sidewalks to schools, and because you obviously want safe passage for kids walking to school, and then sidewalks to parks. Those are typically funded out of the deferred maintenance debt service that was issued to the street sales tax in 2017, I believe. And then also part of that deferred maintenance, there's money set aside for closing small gaps to provide continuity where sidewalks do exist already. Obviously, as part of the Complete Streets Ordinance, any street project that is designed going forward includes sidewalks just by default as part of the requirements of the city now. I say they're tricky because sidewalks and curbs are technically owned by the property owner.
That's
So if the city is going to go in and it gets you don't want to pick and choose, right? Because I can't do for you if I can't do for someone else, and that's where it gets sticky. So schools, new projects, parks typically have the priority.
So the Lexington project is supposed to be just for a streetscape, is that what that's for?
Lexington.
I think it's going from basically Square all the way down to Big and Wagner? No.
Oh, the Truman Depot?
No,
No,
that's
that's
the Truman Depot one. Truman Depot one's done, I think. He said that one got crossed off.
No, it's on there.
I thought it went to zeros when I saw it.
That was
so
a Pacific Trail Improvement one.
Pacific Trail, is that what it's called?
That was one that was
Oh,
Crystal.
Pacific Trail, okay. But, yeah, the Lexington one, I was trying to figure out where that came from. Is there, okay, you're gonna make me look it up. I'll find
I'm
it.
gonna have to. Sorry.
So the nutrient removal, is that a EPA thing?
It is.
Okay.
We are waiting on a final number, upper limit for phosphorus and ammonia in the wastewater. That number that you see is our best guess at this time, and I will tell you it's only a guess.
So this is for wastewater then,
It's for
basically?
wastewater, and depending on what the limit comes back at, that number could go up and down, just depending on how much removal we actually have to do. We were recently notified that we're gonna be part of a state pilot project that's gonna let us, that's gonna fund the study to see kind of where we're at and how much removal we could get out of different means. And so that's probably about $100,000, honestly, to the city that is gonna be now part of a 100% funded project. So it's very exciting, should help us factor in this narrow in this number a little more down the road as well. But that's based on what we know today.
Okay.
But yes, it's an EPA mandate.
And that's like the gravel pits, I think, are, what you call them, something else that's going in for, we've got to replace those?
We have clarifiers that need work, about $2 million
Yeah.
in clarifier work there too.
Okay.
Yep,
That's
that's all
all
at
for
the
wastewater.
Rock Creek treatment plant.
Yeah, it's all wastewater, okay.
Mhm.
I'm still trying to find that one. You do have a lot of storm sewers, that's for sure. And I'd like to say, my biggest question is why are we waiting so long to bring some of them up? But you explained why.
Madam Chair? Can you, I don't know if it's appropriate, I've been very impressed by each department head that has come up and talked about their projects, their budget. And I would just like to send a note back to city manager with thanks to them.
I agree. It's a lot of work.
I got a question for you, Lisa. We
Yes, sir.
seem to want to do a lot of surveys, like this sanitary sewer evaluation survey.
Yes.
I mean, we're talking, you got to do it every 2 years, it looks like, 750,000. Is that something we could hire in-house to do, or do we have to have a consulting firm do that?
That's actually gone down, and the reason we do contract with anyone is sheerly just volume and being able to get through the system. Last budget cycle, so this is our first full year of having our own in-house SSES crew.
So we do have one.
We do have one.
Oh, okay.
And we're asking to add one full-time employee to that next year. So that'll be a budget request for us this year. But yes, that crew does nothing but go out and look for sources of inflow and infiltration into the sanitary system. So if you know this, I'm sorry to bore you with the details. Inflow and infiltration is just extra water into the system. So we're paying, effectively, if we can stop the extra water coming in that's clean already, we're not paying to treat water that doesn't require treatment. It doesn't have human waste in it. It's coming from groundwater, rain events, and things like that. So that crew goes around and uses the data that has been collected from these contractors and then goes around and seals the pipes or manholes or lids by various means. But that is 100% of their time is spent shoring up our system so that we can keep that extra water out.
Okay, well, that's great there, but I'm trying, so basically, you say we still got to outsource it to get the data, right?
Just for volume's sake, we have 618 miles of sanitary sewer pipe that two guys just can't get through in a year.
Okay. So our open-ended project here, neighborhood projects, that's open-ended?
Yes,
What's
that
all
one
about?
rolls over from year to year. And basically, there's known capacity issues on the sanitary side that have problems in pocket areas throughout town that individually would cost so much just in mobilization of a contractor to replace it. It's almost not worth it. So we take all those little pockets, combine them into one project, so we only pay mobilization of a contractor one time, and they take care of all of those smaller projects at that as one unit.
Okay, so this 150,000, is this going to be like the electrics? If it's not used, it goes back in? Or
It stays in the fund balance of the utility, yes.
So, okay.
So, and like IPL and like water, the utilities fund balances only for the utilities. So it would be available, if it goes back into the fund balance, it's available to cover the targeted reserves that we have, or fund additional capital projects if we find ourselves coming out ahead later, which we're not projected to be coming out ahead on the sanitary side, so.
Yeah, how much do we have in reserves or do?
Roughly 14 million.
Okay, we like to be up at 60, like,
Oh, no.
Okay.
That is utility dependent. No, the sanitary utility number is closer to 13.
okay, the thing I'm worried about, and I'm sure a lot of people see, is our sewer bill is awful high, but are we projecting any of that going to go up, or is it going to stay, or what are you thinking?
I'm budgeting for a cost of service study this year.
I don't think that's really us anyway.
I know, okay.
Let's let council,
Okay.
council was last.
Okay, that's fine.
See me Thursday.
So we got to do a clarified rehabilitation for 1.8 next year?
We do. We're doing the study on that for the design right now.
So it's just another study for 1.8?
No, that's
No.
the actual, we're paying now for the design
Oh, okay.
to have it.
Okay,
Yes.
we get a lot of these $100,000 studies, and I'm trying, well, that's a lot of money we're paying people to do stuff.
Yes.
I'm trying to figure out why. Let's see, the stress squeak scrape is going through. There's no way to push that off probably, before we can help this. I saw something, I'm trying to remember. We had the road on Jackson and the road on Little Blue, and I'm trying to figure the intersection. I don't know where those two intersect, and we have money for it. Now, I won't find it here.
Those are just the I-70 and Little Blue interchange. Those are the North Point ones I talked about very
Well,
first.
this one, but it said Jackson Drive and
You've got
Little Blue.
improvements, not that it's an intersection, improvements on both.
Improvements on both, okay.
Yes.
Improvements at what? What are we looking at doing? So I know there's no curbs and stuff out there. When I talked about this, they said that it's good enough for trucks to go over and everything, but I'm thinking it's probably not. Is that correct?
It is rated for trucks, correct.
Okay.
But yes, curbing, any design work that would need to be added. Again, those are projects we're not paying for. We're just facilitating those projects. That's actually a MoDOT and North Point cost.
Okay, so
Not a
that's
city
for
cost.
all at Jackson too, also Little Blue and Jackson?
It's not the whole run of Jackson Drive.
Okay.
Just portions related to, closer to I-70.
Okay, are we looking at anything about 23rd or 78 Highway?
That is MoDOT's asset.
I know it's NODOT, but are we talking to them? Because we know trucks are going to go down that. Are we talking to them about looking into that? Have we?
I mean, yes, they're aware of the project, and we meet with them routinely to discuss all ongoing projects.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're looking at that. Okay, so you answered that question. What's the cost of service study?
That's for the sanitary sewer utility rates to see, just project out what our expected expenditures are over the next 5 years versus anticipated revenues.
Okay, City Hall, we got down replacement windows, we got caulk windows. What are we? why do we
The
got
replacement windows, we would like to replace all of them. We can't afford to replace all of them. So it would be to caulk everything that doesn't get replaced.
Why are we
effectively.
replacing? Aren't we looking at maybe moving City Hall when we build the new facility for the, no? Is that wrong?
What are you gonna do, let the windows fall out while they decide
Well,
whether
they're
they can?
caulking them, so they're gonna caulk them. They're fine there.
Well, that's
quite
it.
literally,
there's-
it quite literally
No,
rains
they
inside
got
this
caulking
building.
and replacement, we got two different items.
I know,
Yeah,
I know.
yeah.
Just
So
Because it
really,
rains inside this building, so we're
Yeah,
trying
really,
to take
we
care
gotta
of that.
fix it, so we can.
yeah,
they can
really
be in here tomorrow.
I mean, they're obviously looking at a police station at this point, as far as City Hall is concerned. I know there were some plans from years ago about different possibilities for this area, but as far as I know right now, not for City Hall.
Okay. So we're only replacing windows that need to be replaced, what you're saying on that
Correct.
200,000?
And then we would be caulking everything that didn't get replaced.
Right.
You good?
I'm still looking at my notes here.
Any other questions while we're waiting for Commissioner Nesbitt?
Well, I mean, we
Comments?
didn't
You're so
we didn't get to
quiet.
do this last year.
Madam
You guys
Chair,
wouldn't let me do
I
it.
do have a question.
Sure.
Yay.
Goes back a long time ago when the trash dump was put on our aquifer. How often is
yeah.
that water tested now?
That's a Dan question. I don't know how often, the requirements on Courtney Ridge. I
Okay.
don't know.
Yeah, that would be a water question.
better
I
write
mean,
it down.
we can write
Email
that,
it.
we can answer that one at a different time.
Okay, I'll write it down.
Sorry.
Most of my questions were why we're putting off a lot of these stormwaters, but, I mean, if we get to 10 million, is that gonna help us bring up some of it, or no? We're still
No, the
waiting.
10 million is, grants are always very specific. It's shocking that there was even grant money available for something like CMP replacement. That is, typically, maintenance items are not something, it comes up, I get a lot of questions about why can't we get grant money for overlay and things like that, so we can improve street quality quicker. The plain and simple answer is they just don't give you grants typically for maintenance activities. So this is
So stormwater.
a crazy thing that's even
culverts,
happened.
That's
and
all maintenance?
That's all considered, the state normally would consider that maintenance, but the ARPA funds they put out allowed for replacement of corrugated metal pipe, so we put in our request.
Okay, my next
Happily we're
question.
granted.
My next question is gonna be then, if this is all maintenance stuff, how much should we be budgeting a year for maintenance for stormwater sewers?
Is this really our question, though?
Well, I mean, if it's a question, I mean, for these different CIP projects, it's probably gonna be $100,000 to $500,000 a year, the way she's talking probably.
Oh, no, your number for actually reinvesting into the system is closer on storm to 1.5 to 1.8 million a year, and on sanitary roughly 3 million a year.
So
To
basi-
just keep up with depreciation of the system.
So that's something that probably should be budgeted and put in a capital improvement project to go for going.
It's budgeted via the projects that we're replacing, upsizing, and things like that. That's
But
effectively.
to try to get money ahead, we need to try to start setting money aside to help do these projects.
That would be great, but we still have to fund the
Well,
projects
that needs to
we
be
know
put
about.
out, I mean, that needs to be put out there, because I mean, these are capital improvement projects that basically, we're asking people to pay for these things, but we don't have the money to pay for it, and now we're gonna try to raise the money to pay for it, but it's gonna be hard to do, because like I say, we only got so much in the budget.
Recommendation to council, find more money.
I love this recommendation.
I know. More grants, more money.
Now, are we starting on our new buildings, so what I saw in is that what,
I put it in last year's budget and it got put on hold, so I'm submitting it every year.
okay, you're submitting it?
For
So-
those of you that don't attend meetings out at Streets, that facility, that complex out at Chrysler, near Chrysler and 23rd Street was built in 1934. It also rains inside, that's the location for our street maintenance and central garage. If it sprinkles indoors here, it is a torrential downpour indoors there.
Great.
There's just lots of safety issues, as you would expect with a building built in the 30s, and that has not, to be honest, been, to say not been well maintained over the years is an understatement. So this proposed facility would house street maintenance, sewer maintenance, stormwater maintenance, and central garage. So we would and facility maintenance. So we would effectively get out of 5 facilities and co-locate those into one. So one utility bill, more efficient systems, one rooftop to take care of. So,
And we have the land already.
we do,
We have the land, we just need to get the building built.
yes.
So, I mean,
But
that,
it's also a hefty capital expenditure, and that one does have a general fund portion, so.
Right. okay. How many dump trucks are we looking at buying?
3,
3?
to replace 2001 from '04 or '02 and a couple from 2012.
Okay.
And one of them will be a baby dump, so it can be utilized for several different tasks.
Do we need to look, I'm sorry, I'm putting it, well, I'll wait and do this later, never mind. I should ask you, because you don't come to meeting, do we need to look at buying another pothole repair truck? It seems like we're not keeping up.
Well, it's,
Again, that's really not our question, right?
I
mean,
know.
you're-
Well, she doesn't come to meeting I'm at,
I
that's
know,
why.
but it's not our lane. Let's just stay in
There's
our
a
lane.
lot of them, I'm just throwing that
everybody that comes to that meeting is well-equipped to answer that
out.
question.
Okay, well, I'll ask them then.
Okay.
I'll ask them then.
Anything else? No
Thank you,
problem.
thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
Anytime.
Thank you. Thank you to, everybody's done, right?
Yep, we're done.
Okay, so thank you to all the departments. I know I can't even begin to imagine the work that's gone into this. Just so everybody can see it, it's pretty thick. This is a lot of projects. And I, for one, I was looking at this, as you were reading it, Rick, the fact that we're rating them like customer-focused, improving customer service and communication, financially sustainable, ensuring that the city finances are stable and sustainable, quality, achieve livability, choice, access, health, and safety through quality built environment, an economy, increase economic prosperity of the community. Applause. I mean, that's just, I think this is a great way to look at projects, and I feel like the departments have done an incredible job staying in that framework, and how important that will be in 30 years, 50 years.
Yeah, and I will say too, one of the things that we're looking at, and again, it's kind of predicated on some of the newer software, is to be able to bring you some newer graphs and charts that can kind of show how that really plays into that scoring, so you can kind of really see how the certain group of projects scores and how it scores, in terms of maybe the number of public that see that project versus, a project that may not have a lot of public impact, but it does have impact to certain neighborhoods. And so being able to bring you some newer charts and graphs and to really kind of update the CIP just as a product, as a report, is something that we're really looking forward to.
I think that'd be great. I just know, as old building owner, tuck pointing, nobody sees that. It is the least sexy thing you can do, other than sewers, maybe. But the money that you spend on that is ridiculous. So I get it, and I appreciate it. So, thank you. Anybody have any words for the greater good?
Well, my comment is that I wish they'd look more into setting aside maintenance fees. So,
Yeah, we do have to vote.
yeah,
on
we
it.
got to vote on it.
Yeah.
That's just one thing, because I know we're going to have projects, but we should have money set aside. In past years, doesn't look like they set enough money aside. When she's saying we need close to $2 million a year set aside for maintenance projects, I see our Power and Light, they put out money, they put aside money. They got lots of money sitting out there for
Well,
projects.
talk to your council person,
I know.
right there.
I'm just telling you, that's one of the things I see, that we need to try to get people to look ahead, because it's not going to get any better, it's just going to get worse.
You got to maintain.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
can I make a motion?
I would love that.
That we vote on the capital improvement program for 2023 to 2029?
I second.
Thank you. We are ready for a vote.
Commissioner Ferguson,
Yes.
Commissioner Nisbet,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Commissioner H. Wiley,
Yes.
Commissioner L. Wiley,
Yes.
and Chairman McLean.
Yes. The capital improvements program for 2023 to 2029 has been approved. Thank you. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you, and again, if anybody's still on, thank you very much for attending. I appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you, the initials on our screen. Thank you, everybody. Okay. Roundtable, do you have anything for us, staff?
I do not.
I just want to let you know I did not receive a packet on Monday,
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
so I was
Okay.
up here flying blind on the first 3 items.
I got mine, mine usually come on Friday, I didn't get mine till Monday.
I just listened intently, but
Okay. I apologize for that.
Anything else?
From the council.
Who's going to say something? No. Oh, see? All right.
Still got hair.
This meeting is adjourned at 6:10. Or wait, oh, sorry, 8:10.